Let's break some news, y'all, real quick.
A federal judge skeptical over a 14-state effort to block DOGE from accessing federal data. Judge Tanya Chutkin doubting claims from 14 attorneys general that DOGE's actions are a threat to democracy, saying she's seen no evidence they are actually causing harm. She's expected to rule on this case later today. I spoke with House Republican Conference Chairwoman Lisa McClain on Sunday Morning Futures about Democrats' reaction to DOGE's findings.
And that's why you see the Democrats losing their mind, because we're actually uncovering all of this waste, fraud, and abuse. And they're losing their minds. Why? Because we're uncovering it, and they're actually advocating for us to continue the wasteful spending. There's a lot of fear-mongering right now that's going on. Listen, I believe that there are a lot of savings and efficiencies that we can find before we have to touch mandatory spending. But let's not confuse savings with cuts, and let's not confuse reforms with cuts. Our goal is to make sure that we give the money and the programs to the people who need it most. I'm hard-pressed to believe that government runs so efficiently that there's not any savings that we can find.
Joining me now is New York Post columnist and Fox News contributor Miranda Devine. Miranda, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here, and you've written so much about this. Your reaction to how the Democrats are reacting to DOGE.
Good morning, Maria. Look, I just am baffled
like
by
chickens
them.
with their head cut
I
off.
think that this is a very popular issue. Part of Elon Musk's remit into going into these government departments is to modernise their technology, and he's shown in so many different ways how antiquated it is. Going back to the 1960s, he's uncovered along the way so much, waste and potential fraud and certainly abuse. All these social security numbers for people that either are too old to be alive or just don't exist. That's something that opinion polls are starting to show that the American public is behind. So the Democrats don't seem to have got their act together. They don't seem to have a leader. They don't have a proper message. All they are is rejecting and obstructing everything that Donald Trump is trying to do, even when it's as popular as what DOGE is doing. So I'm not surprised that they were pushed back in a federal court because really their arguments are hysterical and threadbare.
I mean, it's just incredible what Elon Musk...
I want to buy your house. I can pay you cash for your house, no matter what condition it's in.
Is saying, and when he posted all of this, Miranda, and he said having tens of millions of people marked in Social Security as alive at 150, 130, whatever it is, when they are definitely dead is a huge problem. So, I mean, how is this possible that these checks are just on automatic pilot and they just keep going out?
I ain't hear that. Motherfucker 150 years old? Where they at? Motherfucker, I think Trish Rogan. Shout out to Trish Rogan. She did a video. A motherfucker was 350 years old. I was getting a Social Security check.
He puts the whole list together. There was one person, and they're definitely dead, is saying, and when he posted all.
Because really their arguments are hysterical and threadbare.
I mean, it's just incredible what Elon Musk is saying, and when he posted all of this, Miranda, and he said having tens of millions of people marked in Social Security as alive at 150, 130, whatever it is, when they are definitely dead is a huge problem. So, I mean, how is this possible that these checks are just on automatic pilot and they just keep going out? He puts the whole list together. There was one person in the Social Security Administration record that was receiving benefits. He was 360 years old, okay? And then you've got thousands, hundreds of thousands, 150, 160, 130. To be clear, I Googled the oldest person in the United States is 114 years old right now. But still, I mean, it's just crazy. Your thoughts?
It really is crazy. I mean,
they owe
all
some
that
money
going out, and there's been no visibility by the government on where it's going. No wonder we're in terrible debt and deficit.
Right.
It's the first time Donald Trump is the first president who's actually really trying to get to grips with this problem, and he's brought in the #1 expert in the world. You could not find anyone better than Elon Musk to come in with his big brain and his tech knowledge and his team of, high IQ kids to actually try and sort out this enormous problem. And I can't think of anyone better to have done it. And we are incredibly lucky that someone like Elon Musk is willing to roll up his sleeves and do this for nothing. And he doesn't need money. People are absurdly accusing him of doing this for his own personal benefit. He's the richest man in the world.
What's that? Send that to me. Send it over here.
And, it's everybody knows if you're balancing your own budget or you're balancing, the state or the country's budget, the first thing to do is to stop digging the hole and understand clearly what you're spending on. So it's bizarre to think that the Democrats are going to come up with this idea, well, yeah, you can cut fraud, abuse, and waste without actually looking at where the money is going. I also have to ask you about Europe because VP J.D. Vance gave quite the speech in Munich the other day, warning Europeans about the dangers of censorship at the Munich Security Conference last week. Here's a bit, watch.
What I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values shared with the United States of America. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. We must do more than talk about democratic values. We must live them. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership.
Miranda, you wrote about this in an op-ed in the New York Post. That was quite the speech. Your reaction?
It really was. It was a wonderful speech, and I think that J.D. Vance has done a service to European people by articulating exactly the American view of how sort of dastardly the censorship regime is that's falling down around Europe now. We had 3 German prosecutors actually on 60 Minutes the other night just proudly boasting about the fact that they have criminalized insults on the internet. You can go to jail for insulting someone on the internet and even reposting an insult. So this is quite frightening. And in fact, what led to the Nazi regime insults on the internet. We had 3 German prosecutors actually on 60 Minutes the other night just proudly boasting about the fact that they have criminalized insults on the internet. You can go to jail for insulting someone on the internet and even reposting an insult. So this is quite frightening. And in fact, what led to the Nazi regime, unlike what Margaret Brennan was trying to say to Marco Rubio the other day, who slapped her down, I think that America, because of its First Amendment and its history of free speech, is the sort of beacon of light in the world as censorship does rear its ugly head in Europe. And I think Europeans themselves will be cheering on J.D. Vance even if the political elites were aghast.
Yeah, what was she saying? Margaret Brennan was saying that free speech was weaponized during World War II. Free speech? There was no free speech.
Well, she said free speech was weaponized and led to the Nazi regime. In fact, there was enormous censorship, and it's arguable that the backlash to that censorship actually led to the rise of the Nazi Party, made their message sort of forbidden fruit. And then, of course, when the Nazis took office, they just destroyed all free speech, took over all media, and propagandized the people. So that was the opposite of free speech.
Like
right. Liz Peek, jump in here.
It's not, Vance was not just talking about free speech, but also the efforts in Europe to subvert elections. We have an election coming up days away in Germany, and there's been some talk that if it goes far right, they simply won't allow it. What is your thought about that?
That's right, and J.D. Vance actually quoted Thierry Breton, who's a former...
And they're trying to remove Eric Adams. Let's get to that. Yeah, 4 top of his aides resigned.
I never thought reading glasses could be this smart and stylish. I think I could toss out all my other glasses. This one... And now Governor Hochul is being asked to step in and remove him from office.
It comes after the DOJ asked that Adams' corruption charges be dropped, with the judge expected to rule on the case this week. Christina Fan joins us live from City Hall with the latest. Christina. Well, Mary and Chris, New York Communities for Change says it plans to hold daily rallies here in front of City Hall until the mayor either steps down or is removed from office. But Adams has no such plans, saying over the weekend, "I am going nowhere." A defiant Mayor Adams fired back at opponents as he visited 2 churches in Queens Sunday, saying this about ongoing protests calling for his resignation.
8.3 million people in the city. Are there going to be 8.3 million people there?
Over the weekend, immigrant rights groups rallied in Foley Square, calling on Governor Kathy Hochul to remove Mayor Adams from office.
Voters voted for Eric Adams, and now they want a new chance to put somebody else in the seat. We don't
coming over here trying to
the mayor
control
had hoped having his federal corruption case dropped would save his political career, but the dismissal has raised questions over whether he can run the city independently. Several prosecutors with the DOJ resigned in protest, claiming this was a political deal between the mayor and the White House in exchange for cooperation of immigration enforcement. Last week, the mayor met with President Trump's border czar Tom Homan and agreed to allow ICE agents onto Rikers Island.
I really don't think had anything to do with whatever's going on in the Justice Department. We never talked about that. It's kind of out of my lane. I've been talking to the mayor for months about getting in Rikers Island. That's what we talked about.
Several top Democrats are also putting pressure on Adams, including Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins, who stood next to Governor Hochul at the 2025 caucus reception Sunday, just one day after publicly saying she supports the governor looking at her options. Governor Hochul hasn't commented since last week when she said she was consulting with officials about the mayor's future. Even though federal prosecutors have filed a motion to dismiss the mayor's corruption charges, a federal judge still has to approve that motion. A decision is expected by the end of this week. Reporting live from City Hall, Christina Fan, CBS News, New York. Christina, thank you.
I heard that they're trying to remove Eric Adams. Trying to call him a puppet because he met with Tom Homan and met with Donald Trump, so now he's not part of the go along, get along gang. And they trying to have him removed, but it's migrants that's protesting in the streets. And I wonder if there's some Negroes out there with them migrants protesting to have Eric Adams removed. And 9 times out of 10 it is.
Death field set to false. Maybe Twilight is real and there are lots of vampires collecting Social Security. Oh, wow. His post features a chart in it where there are more than 20 million listed with ages 100 and higher, including more than 3.9 million in the 130 to 139 range, more than 3.5 million in the 140 to 149 range, and more than 1.3 million in the 150 to 159 range. You guys, I mean, we knew it was bad. We knew it was was bad, but did we have any idea it was quite this bad? I gotta show it to you. Oh my gosh, I'm just looking at this age count range. I mean, how is this even possible? Other than you just have an enormous amount of mess. I mean, I could use another word, right? This is just pretty sickening. And so somehow all of this is going down and nobody's noticed. Like, nobody's actually ever done an audit of this stuff before. I mean, we need to be thanking this guy. Thank you very much. Look at this. Maybe Twilight is real, he writes. Look at this. Now, doesn't this make you angry? These are in the millions. There's 121 million people between the ages of 160 and 169. Where are these checks going? They're getting printed and they're getting cashed. And you know what we need to know? Because this actually is illegal. If you are cashing a check for somebody who has, is supposed to be, 300 years old, that would actually put you in violation of the law. So this is what is going to get discovered, and this is what we're going to find out, in addition to figuring out where all these billions of dollars are going all over the world. I mean, this is really bonker stuff, and so this is what America voted for. On top of that, America wants to make sure that everything is shored up. There's talk of the Fort Knox getting inspected right now, which is where we keep our gold. And this is something that is really important to Senator Rand Paul. He wants this. He's been pushing for this 200-watt studio. Thank you so much. It's really great. I have such generous viewers here on this show, so I appreciate that. I'm going to get to your comment in a second, but basically you have all of these people like Rand Paul that are saying, listen, we want to make sure that the gold is really there. Apparently Steve Mnuchin went in and checked it out, so hopefully all is good. But again, if you're doing a really good forensic accounting job, I think that this is important to find out. So they're going to go in and they're going to look in the very near future at the Fort Knox gold, just to make sure, right? Everything is there. If you're somebody who likes gold, somebody who's worried about inflation, somebody who's worried about the direction of things, even if you're not worried about the direction of things, I think that just inflation in general is a reality. And even though this administration is going to work really, really hard to cut it, it's just sort of where we are.
Let me show you our channel. We got our channel right here, y'all. Y'all going over there and check out Trish Rogan's channel. She be live all the time too, y'all. Trish crazy, huh? Trish is crazy. Trish cool too. Good people. Shout out to Trish Rogan, man. Nice looking lady too, y'all. Nice looking lady. It's a fact. But I just wanted to come up and do that quick fraud Social Security thing going on. People, the highest person that's still collecting, they 360 years old. But like she said, whoever was cashing them checks, that shit gonna lead back in the rabbit hole, go back to the rabbit hole. I'm going inside that motherfucking rabbit hole and be like, yo, you been cashing these motherfucking checks? You been passing them down to family members, 360 years old? You been passing that shit down. Motherfuckers been getting that check, cashing that motherfucker faithfully. So when they say they gonna cut Social Security, y'all, don't let them scare y'all with the scare tactics. They gonna go through that shit. DOGE gonna go through Social Security, y'all. They got a list already of motherfucking checks that was being printed out every month. Motherfuckers 160 years old. Motherfuckers vampires, y'all. Motherfuckers was allowed when the dinosaurs was allowed, still get the check. So that's coming to an end, y'all. And whoever was cashing them checks, most definitely gonna be held accountable. That's a federal crime. And they tell y'all that with that Social Security, when a loved one passed away, you got to notify Social Security and let them know that a loved one passed away. If not, and you still getting them checks and you cashing them, that's a crime. You know, whoever was cashing them checks, 360 years old, motherfucker, you owe millions of dollars, nigga. You owe, yo. Oh, man. All right, y'all. Peace.